Chapter 1. The ship that refused to die. The stars were silent. Not the normal silence of space. Not the familiar emptiness Commander Cyril had spent most of his life navigating. This silence felt older, as if something had been waiting. The exploration cruiser Whisper of Dawn drifted through the edge of forbidden space, engines barely whispering against the darkness. Nobody came here anymore. The region had been abandoned centuries ago. No trade routes, no colonies, no military stations, nothing. Officially, there was no reason to enter the dead expanse. Unofficially, every civilization in the galaxy avoided it for reasons nobody could fully explain. Stories survived. Old stories. The kind grandparents told children before sleep. Stories about vanished fleets, lost stars, ghost transmissions, and humans, especially humans. Commander Cyril never believed those stories, not completely, until today. The alert sounded softly across the bridge. One of his officers turned pale. "Commander," Cyril looked up. "What is it?" The officer swallowed. "We found something." The main display changed. At first, Cyril thought he was looking at debris, a wreck, ancient metal floating between dead stars. Then the image sharpened. The bridge became silent. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The object hanging in space was a ship, a very old ship. Its hull was scarred. Entire sections had been repaired by hand. The engines appeared dormant. Several external lights were dead. Others flickered weakly, but the vessel was intact. Impossible. Nothing survived this long. Not out here. Cyril leaned forward. "What vessel is that?" The computer searched. Nothing. No registry. No records, no identification. The ship should not exist. Then another officer spoke. His voice sounded uncertain. "Commander, there's a symbol on the hull." The image zoomed closer. A faded emblem appeared beneath centuries of wear. Everyone on the bridge stared. Nobody recognized it immediately. Then Cyril felt something cold move down his spine. He had seen it before, years ago, in a restricted historical archive, a symbol that had supposedly been erased from history. A blue circle, a white star, and beneath it, a single word: Earth. The bridge fell completely silent. One officer laughed nervously. "That's impossible." Nobody answered him, because everyone was thinking the same thing. Humans were gone. Not extinct, not exactly, but gone, scattered, lost. Their civilization had collapsed centuries ago. Entire sectors had spent generations debating whether humanity had ever been as powerful as legends claimed. Some called them myths, others called them monsters. Most considered them history. Yet here was a human ship, floating where no ship should be. Alive. Cyril stared at the screen. Then another alarm sounded. This one made every officer freeze. A transmission. Incoming. Weak. Ancient. Real. The signal crackled through the bridge speakers. Static filled the room. Several seconds passed. Then a voice emerged. A human voice. For the first time in 300 years. "If anyone receives this message." The bridge crew stopped breathing. "Please do not leave," Static interrupted. Then the voice returned, older, tired, yet strangely calm. "We've been waiting a very long time." The transmission ended. Nobody spoke. Cyril stood slowly. "Prepare a boarding team," one officer immediately protested. "Commander, we have no idea what's inside." "I know. It could be a trap." Cyril looked at the ancient vessel. "No." His voice softened. "I don't think it is." An hour later, the shuttle crossed the darkness separating the two ships. The human vessel grew larger with every passing minute. It wasn't beautiful. It wasn't intimidating. It simply felt stubborn, like something that had refused to surrender. The airlock responded almost immediately. Another surprise. Someone was alive inside. The outer doors opened. Warm air escaped into the docking chamber. Warm. After 300 years, Cyril stepped forward with 6 security officers. The corridor beyond looked ancient, but clean. Very clean. Lights glowed softly along the ceiling. Paint peeled from some walls. Pipes showed signs of repeated repairs. Handwritten notes covered entire sections of metal. Real handwriting. Not digital displays, actual ink. Cyril moved closer. Names, thousands of names. Children. Parents, grandparents, birthdays, messages, drawings, entire generations preserved on metal walls. One security officer whispered, "My stars." Cyril understood why. This wasn't a ship, it was a home. They continued deeper. The evidence became impossible to ignore. Gardens, actual gardens. Plants growing beneath artificial sunlight, children's toys, classrooms, murals, family photographs, life, human life, not soldiers, not refugees, families, 9 generations of them. An entire civilization living inside one wandering vessel. The realization hit Cyril harder than any battlefield ever had. 300 years, 9 generations, never touching a planet, never seeing a sky, never stopping. The corridor opened into a large chamber. People waited there, humans, dozens of them, some old, some young, some carrying children. Nobody looked afraid. Nobody ran. They simply watched, as if they had expected this moment their entire lives. Then Cyril saw her, standing at the center. Captain Mara Voss. She wasn't young, but she stood perfectly straight. Her uniform had been repaired countless times. Silver threads crossed worn fabric. The insignia on her collar was faded beyond recognition. Yet somehow she looked more like a captain than anyone Cyril had ever met. Not because of authority, because of responsibility. The weight of centuries rested on her shoulders, and she carried it without bending. The room became silent. Everyone watched. Cyril took one step forward. Before he could speak, Mara did. Her voice was calm, steady, unforgettable. We were beginning to worry humanity would be forgotten before we finished keeping our promise. The words hit like a physical force. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. A promise. What promise? Cyril looked into her eyes. For the first time, he realized something important. These people weren't lost. They weren't survivors. They weren't drifting aimlessly. They were going somewhere. Mara gestured gently. "Welcome aboard the Eden's Wake, Commander. We've been listening." Cyril frowned. Listening to what? A faint smile appeared. The galaxy. Meanwhile, thousands of light years away, news began spreading, faster than anyone expected. An ancient human ship had been found, alive. The reaction was immediate and divided. Within the Republic of Talran, senators laughed openly. Humans? One representative shook his head. Ancient stories. Another smiled. A drifting museum vessel changes nothing. The chamber filled with agreement. To them, humanity was history. Interesting history. Nothing more. But elsewhere, the reaction was very different. Deep within the military archives of the Vey Dominion, elderly historians gathered behind sealed doors. No cameras, no records, no witnesses. One old scholar stared at the recovered image of Eden's Wake. His hands trembled. They found one. Nobody answered. The scholar looked around the room. Fear filled his eyes. Real fear. The stories were true. One officer frowned. "What stories?" The old scholar hesitated, as if speaking the words might summon something. Finally, he whispered, "The builders." The room became silent. Nobody laughed, because some legends were never completely forgotten. Back aboard Eden's Wake, Cyril walked beside Mara through another corridor. Children passed them. Curious eyes watched from doorways. One little girl waved. Cyril waved back automatically. She smiled, then ran away laughing. Something about that simple moment hurt. These children had never seen a real world, never felt rain, never stood beneath a sky, yet they still laughed. Mara noticed his expression. They deserve better. Then why stay here? She didn't answer immediately. When she finally spoke, her voice carried centuries of exhaustion. Because some promises matter more than comfort, they arrived at a reinforced door. Unlike everything else aboard the vessel, this section looked newer, much newer. Heavy security systems covered every surface. Ancient symbols decorated the frame. Cyril felt unease growing inside him. "What is this place?" Mara stared at the door. For a moment, she looked older than the ship itself. Then she answered, "The reason we survived." The door opened. Darkness waited beyond. Machines filled the chamber. Massive machines. Ancient machines. Older than the ship. Older than the journey. At the center stood a single holographic projector. Dust drifted through blue light. The projector activated. A star map appeared. The galaxy rotated slowly. Then Cyril noticed something. Thousands of markers began appearing, one after another, then hundreds more, then thousands. His eyes widened. Mara watched silently. Cyril's voice barely emerged. "What am I looking at?" Mara answered softly, the one still sleeping. A cold sensation moved through his entire body. The markers continued multiplying. 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, more, far more. Ancient vessels hidden across the galaxy, waiting, watching, dormant, impossible numbers. Cyril stared in disbelief. Every known navy in existence combined could not match that count. His mouth went dry. "These are human ships?" Mara nodded. The room felt smaller. The air felt heavier. Then the computer finished counting. A number appeared above the map. Cyril looked at it, looked again, certain he had read it wrong. But the number remained unchanged. 50,000. The ancient fleet was real. And somewhere in the darkness beyond known space, it was beginning to wake. Chapter 2. The fleet that was never meant to fight. The number refused to disappear. 50,000. Commander Cyril stared at the holographic map as if blinking might change reality. It didn't. 50,000 human ships, hidden across the galaxy. Not drifting, not destroyed, sleeping. Each blue marker pulsed once every few seconds, like the slow heartbeat of something impossibly old. No civilization possessed a fleet that large. Not the Coalition, not the Vey Dominion. Not even the combined strength of every known empire. Cyril slowly turned toward Mara Vavos. "You've been hiding this." Mara shook her head. No. Her voice was quiet. "They've been hiding themselves." Before Cyril could ask another question, every light aboard Eden's Wake dimmed. A deep vibration rolled through the ship. Not violent, gentle, like a giant waking beneath the floor. The children in the nearby corridor stopped talking. No one screamed. Instead, they looked toward the ceiling. One little boy smiled. "They heard us." An older woman quietly placed her hand on his shoulder. "Not yet." A soft chime echoed through the ship. Mara closed her eyes for a moment. "They're early, far beyond the dead expanse." Hyperspace split open. One gateway became 10. 10 became 100. Then, the darkness filled with warships, thousands of them. long gray hulls covered with battle scars, heavy carriers, siege cruisers, missile barges, escort destroyers. The banners of the Dominion fleet stretched across space like a moving continent. At their center drifted the command flagship Iron Resolve. Standing on its bridge was Commander Cale Reyes. He was not an angry man. He was not eager for battle. His hands rested calmly behind his back, but his eyes never left the ancient human vessel displayed on the main screen. An officer approached. "We have surrounded the sector." Cale nodded. "No weapons." The officer blinked. "Sir, I said no weapons. But intelligence reports suggest the humans possess unknown technology." Cale answered without raising his voice. "Unknown technology deserves caution." The bridge fell silent. Most officers expected to have confidence. Instead, they saw restraint. One young lieutenant finally asked, "Commander, are you afraid of them?" Cale looked through the viewport. His reflection stared back. Older than he remembered. Tired. "My grandmother," he said softly, "used to tell me stories." No one interrupted. "When I was a child, I laughed at them." He smiled sadly. "She never did." Another officer frowned. "What stories?" Cale's eyes never moved. "She served during the archive purge." Several officers exchanged confused glances. That event had happened centuries earlier. History barely mentioned it. "My grandmother said the archives didn't burn because humans were defeated." He paused. "They burned because someone wanted the galaxy to forget." The bridge became completely silent. He remembered sitting beside her as a child. She had held an old metal insignia in trembling hands. A blue circle. A white star. She never explained where it came from. Only one sentence. "If humanity ever returns, don't mistake silence for weakness." As a boy, he thought she was telling ghost stories. Now, he wasn't so sure. Back aboard Eden's Wake, Cyril watched through the observation deck as the Dominion fleet emerged from hyperspace. Ship after ship. Thousands. Enough firepower to erase entire civilizations. His breathing slowed. "They came quickly." Mara nodded. "They've been watching this region for generations. You expected them, yes. And yet you transmitted, because waiting any longer would have been worse." Cyril looked toward the massive fleet. "They outnumber you beyond imagination." Mara's expression didn't change. "We were never trying to win a battle." Those words stayed with him. Within minutes, a secure communication channel opened. Cale appeared. His face was calm. No arrogance, no threats. He simply studied Mara. So he said quietly, "You really exist." Mara gave a small nod. "So do you." For several long seconds, as neither commander spoke. Finally, Cale broke the silence. "My orders are to secure your vessel." "I know. I don't wish to harm your people." "I know that too." Cyril looked between them. It felt less like enemies meeting, and more like two people continuing a conversation interrupted centuries ago. Cale finally asked, "What are you protecting?" Mara looked toward the stars. "Not what." She looked back. "Who?" The transmission ended. Hours later, Mara led Cyril deep beneath the central decks. Far below the gardens, far below the living quarters, the ship became older with every step. Metal changed color. Walls carried symbols no translation program recognized. Finally, they entered a circular chamber. At its center rested a recording device. Not digital, not holographic. Mechanical. Its surface bore the fingerprints of countless generations. Mara gently activated it. A woman appeared. Young, human. Her uniform looked impossibly clean. Her eyes carried hope untouched by centuries. "My name is Dr. Eleanor Voss." Cyril immediately looked toward Mara, the same family. Mara nodded. "My ancestor." The recording continued. "If you're seeing this, then we failed to return before history forgot us." She smiled sadly. "That's all right." Behind her floated an image of the solar system. Earth, Mars, Jupiter. Then, something strange. The image shifted beneath the orbit of Neptune. A hidden structure appeared, impossible in size, wrapped around empty space itself. Cyril frowned. "What is that?" The recording answered. "We discovered it beneath our own solar system. Not beneath a planet, not beneath the sun, beneath reality itself. It wasn't built by humans." The room became completely silent. It wasn't a weapon. The image expanded. Ancient geometric patterns stretched farther than entire star systems. "We still don't know who built it." Another pause. "We only know one thing. It was asleep." Cyril felt chills. Eleanor continued. "And waking it would end everything." The recording ended abruptly. No explanation, only silence. Cyril slowly whispered, "So the fleet," Mara finished the sentence, "was never built for war." Across the galaxy, blue lights appeared, one, then another, then hundreds, then thousands. Ancient stations hidden inside dead moons came alive. Derelict satellites unfolded, buried docks opened, frozen asteroids split apart. Inside each, a human ship waited, the same symbol, the same blue star. Engines that had slept for centuries ignited without a single crew member touching them. One by one, the fleet awakened. Across every known border, across forgotten systems, across regions no empire had charted, 50,000 silent vessels opened their eyes. None fired weapons, none transmitted threats. They simply moved toward one destination, the dead expanse. Panic spread faster than hyperspace. The Talran Republic stopped laughing. Emergency sessions replaced celebrations. The Vey Dominion recalled every patrol. Merchant guilds abandoned trade lanes. Religious leaders declared ancient prophecies fulfilled. Artificial intelligences across dozens of civilizations began producing conflicting predictions. None exceeded a 3% chance of survival. No one understood why. Inside the Dominion flagship, an officer ran onto the bridge. "Commander!" Kale turned. "The human fleet? What about it?" "They're not taking attack formations." Kale frowned. "Then what are they doing?" The officer hesitated. His voice shook. "They're surrounding something." "What?" "We don't know." KL stared at the tactical display. Every human ship ignored the Dominion fleet, ignored every empire, ignored every weapon pointed toward them. Instead, they were forming enormous geometric patterns around empty regions of space, as if protecting nothing, or something invisible, Kale whispered. One officer looked toward him. "What did she say?" Kale barely breathed. "She said humanity guarded a door." Back aboard Eden's Wake, the air suddenly changed. Cyril couldn't explain it. Pressure, warmth, a strange vibration inside his thoughts. Not painful, almost curious. Children stopped playing. Birds inside the gardens became perfectly still. Even the ship itself seemed to be listening. Then, every living person aboard heard the same voice. Not through speakers, not through radios. Inside their minds, soft, gentle, awake. "Are you still here?" Nobody answered. Nobody knew how. The voice wasn't threatening. It sounded lonely. Centuries of loneliness wrapped inside 4 simple words. Mara closed her eyes. Tears finally appeared. They've never spoken before. Cyril looked at her. "Who?" Before she could answer, the lights exploded into brilliant white. Across the galaxy, every one of the 50,000 ancient human ships suddenly changed formation. Not toward battle, toward containment. Invisible cracks appeared across the darkness itself. Space bent. Stars stretched into impossible shapes. Reality trembled like thin glass under growing pressure. Warning alarms erupted aboard every ship in the sector. Dominion, Coalition, Human, all at once. Kale gripped his command console. His face lost every trace of color. He finally understood. The fleet had never been waiting to conquer the galaxy. It had been standing watch. And whatever it had been holding back was beginning to break free. Chapter 3. The promise they carried. The first crack appeared without a sound. Commander Cyril watched through the observation deck as space itself bent like thin glass. The stars stretched into impossible lines before snapping back into place. Then another fracture opened. And another. None of the ships fired. None of the commanders gave attack orders. For the first time in recorded history, every fleet in the sector faced an enemy that could not be targeted. Across thousands of channels, weapons officers reported the same thing. Target lock unavailable. Energy readings unstable. Missiles cannot acquire a solution. The universe itself had become uncertain. Aboard the Dominion flagship Iron Resolve, Commander Kale Reyes stared at the expanding fractures. His tactical officer looked at him. "Commander, we can still retreat." Kale slowly shook his head. "No, but if this spreads, it won't stop because we leave." The bridge fell silent. He remembered his grandmother's final words. "If humanity ever stands between you and the darkness, stand beside them." At the time, he had thought she was speaking in riddles. Now he understood. She hadn't been warning him about humans. She had been warning him about what humans were protecting. Kale opened a fleet-wide channel. "This is Commander Kale Reyes." Thousands of Dominion captains listened. "Our mission has changed." Several officers looked at him in disbelief. "We are no longer here to contain the human fleet." He took a slow breath. "We are here to help them." Shock spread across every bridge. One captain protested immediately. "They are our enemy," Kale answered quietly. "Not today." Inside Eden's Wake, warning lights flashed across every corridor. Children were calmly escorted toward the central gardens. They had practiced this their entire lives. Every generation had rehearsed this day. No panic, no screaming, only quiet determination. Mara Voss walked through the corridors, touching the walls as she passed. Her fingers brushed over hundreds of handwritten names. The first settlers, their children, their grandchildren. 9 generations. Every family had added another name before they died. They had never seen Earth. Yet they had never stopped believing someone else would. An elderly woman approached Mara. Her white hair framed a gentle smile. "Eleanor is waiting." Mara nodded. "I know." Deep beneath the ship, the oldest chamber had changed. The machines surrounding it glowed with pale blue light. Standing beside them was Eleanor Voss, the 9th keeper. Age had bent her body but not her spirit. She looked at Mara with tired, loving eyes. "So," she whispered. The day finally came. Mara knelt beside her. "I wish it hadn't." Eleanor smiled. Every keeper wished the same. Outside, another fracture split across the stars. The chamber trembled. Eleanor reached into her pocket and removed a small metal key. It looked ordinary, worn smooth by countless hands. She placed it in Mara's palm. It was never meant to open anything. Mara looked down. "What does it do?" "It reminds us." "Of what?" that promises are carried by people, not machines. Across the galaxy, 50,000 ancient human ships completed their movement. They formed an enormous lattice, each vessel connected to the next with brilliant streams of light. A web stretched across the stars, not a weapon, a seal. Reality continued pushing against it. The lattice held, for a moment. Then the first human ship failed. Its engines went dark. Its lights faded. Without an explosion, it simply became silent. Seconds later, another failed, then another. Each ship gave its remaining energy to strengthen the seal. One by one, they sacrificed themselves. The lattice remained intact, barely. Commander Cyril watched the impossible sight. "They're dying," Mara nodded. "They always knew they would. They could have escaped. They made their choice 300 years ago." Cyril lowered his head. No monument in the galaxy would ever equal what he was witnessing. Kael's fleet reached the outer edge of the lattice. His engineers reported immediately. "We can stabilize part of the structure. It will destroy our reactors." "I know." The officer hesitated only a second. Then he smiled. "We'll hold our section." Soon Dominion ships joined the formation. Alien vessels connected themselves to human technology they barely understood. Power flowed. The lattice brightened. For the first time, humanity was no longer standing alone. The pressure eased, but only slightly. Eleanor looked toward Mara. "There is one truth I kept from every keeper." Mara's expression changed. "What truth?" Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. "The fleet was never the lock." Mara frowned. "I don't understand." "You do." Eleanor gently closed Mara's fingers around the old key. "The fleet only strengthens the seal." She reached up and touched Mara's face. "You," her voice trembled, "are the lock." Silence filled the chamber. Mara's breathing stopped. "No," the first keeper volunteered. The second accepted. "So did the third. 9 generations protected you until the day you would choose." Mara looked away. "There has to be another way." "There isn't." Outside, alarms screamed. Another section of reality shattered. Eleanor whispered, "The universe isn't asking for victory. It is asking for one life." Mara closed her eyes. She saw every face she had known. Every child born aboard Eden's wake. Every birthday celebrated beneath artificial skies. Every promise. When she opened her eyes again, she had already made her decision. Before entering the central chamber, she asked for one thing. "Bring me Lena." Minutes later, a little girl ran toward her. She could not have been older than 7. She hugged Mara without fear. "Are we going home?" Mara smiled through tears. "Yes." The little girl reached into her pocket. "I made this." It was a tiny wooden spaceship, crooked, hand-carved. One wing was slightly shorter than the other. "I wanted you to have it." Mara accepted it as though it were the most valuable object in existence. "Thank you." Lena looked up. "Will you come with us?" Mara couldn't answer immediately. Finally, she knelt. Some dreams exist so others can keep living. She kissed the child's forehead. Lena smiled, not fully understanding. Then she ran back toward her father. Mara watched her go until she disappeared around the corner. Only then did she allow herself to cry. She entered the chamber alone. The old key fit perfectly into the ancient console. Blue light surrounded her. The lattice across the galaxy blazed brighter than 1,000 suns. Every remaining human ship released the last of its energy. Dominion ships matched them. Coalition vessels followed. Civilizations that had spent centuries preparing for war now fought together for existence itself. The fractures began closing, one after another. The strange voice echoed inside every living mind. "No longer lonely, now grateful. Thank you." The final crack sealed. The stars returned to normal. Silence filled the galaxy once more. The light surrounding Mara faded. The chamber stood empty. She was gone weeks later. A transport descended through blue skies. Children pressed their faces against the windows. Clouds, rain, birds. None of them had seen such things before. The ship landed on Earth. The hatch opened. A little girl stepped onto grass. Lena. She hesitated, then placed one bare foot onto the ground. Her eyes became wide. "It feels soft." Her father smiled through tears. "Yes, it always was." Commander Reyes visited a quiet memorial overlooking a field. He carried no guards. No ceremony followed him. He removed the insignia from his own uniform and placed it beside Mara Voss's name. He stood there for a long time. Then he turned and walked away without speaking a single word. Commander Cyril arrived after sunset. The wind moved gently through the grass. A young historian standing nearby finally asked the question every civilization wanted answered. Were humans the greatest warriors the galaxy ever produced? Cyril looked toward the stars before answering. No, the historian waited. Cyril smiled softly. They were the ones willing to stand watch while everyone else slept. The wind carried his words across the quiet field, where children laughed beneath an open sky that 9 generations had never stopped believing they would one day see.